Yo, Amateur Lore here, and today we're doing something I wanted to do for a while. I'm going to be looking through every Big Ten football school and picking their best head coach in program history. Some of the criteria I'm looking for is 10-win seasons, conference and national titles, as well as the amount of years they coached at their program. I'm going to be trying not to pick coaches from way back before the year 1970, but as you'll notice the more you watch the video, for some schools I kinda had to do that. Be sure to comment the next conference you want me to do next, or any other topics you'd like to see me cover. Also, if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and a sub. Now let's jump right into every Big Ten team's best head coach in program history. First up is the Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois hasn't had too many great coaches in the last 60 years. Brett Bielema, while he's had a little bit of success in his short time coaching in Champaign, putting together their first 10-win season since 2001, he still has a lot more to prove. I really didn't want to have to go back past the year 1970 for any of the coaches in this video, but for Illinois we're probably going to have to do that. From 1913 all the way until 1941, head coach Robert Zupke would call the shots for the Fighting Illini, putting together 3 undefeated seasons, going 7-0 in 1914, 8-0 in 1923 winning the national championship, and 7-0 in 1927 winning the Natty again. There were also a couple of seasons where his ball club would fall just short from perfection, going 6-1 in 1919, 6-1 in 1924, 7-1 in 1928, 6-1 in 1929, and finally 7-1 in 1934. In Coach Zupke's 29 years at Illinois, he had the Fighting Illini as yearly national title contenders, as well as Western/Big Ten Conference title contenders. As not only would he win 2 national titles, which some sources also have him at 4, but he would also win 7 conference titles. He's a College Football Hall of Famer, and while I really didn't want to have to go this far back, I couldn't ignore how successful he was when he called the shots for the University of Illinois. This next school's head coach is an easy slam dunk, well at least to me. I'd love to see what the Indiana Hoosiers fans have to say about this, but for the University of Indiana, I'm going to put Curt Cignetti as their best coach of all time. I understand he's literally been there for only 1.5 seasons as I'm recording this video, but already in year 2 he's accomplished more than 95% of the previous Indiana head coaches. In year 1 he would win a program record 11 games. The last time Indiana would come closest to having a 10-win season was all the way back in 1945 and 1967 when they would win 9 games. Also in year 1 under Coach Cignetti, the Hoosiers would reach a top 5 ranking for only the 3rd time in program history. The last time they did that was also back in 1945 and 1967. That's just year 1. In year 2, which is still ongoing, he has Indiana currently sitting at 9-0 and ranked as the number 2 team in the country, their highest ranking in program history. I've seen Indiana play a couple of times this year. I was locked into the Oregon vs. Indiana game, and the Hoosiers looked like an elite football team. Their defense was flying, moving fast to the ball, the offense was balanced, and they had primetime playmakers. There's no way I couldn't put Coach Cignetti as their best head coach. He has me wanting to watch and keep up with Indiana football, something I never in a million years thought would be coming out of my mouth, and for that reason, that's why he's here. Rounding out the Big Ten schools whose names start with an I, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes next up. So for Iowa, unlike the previous 2 schools, they've had a couple of great head coaches who stuck around for a good amount of time. 2 that come to mind are Forrest Evashevski, who coached Iowa from 1952 until 1960. In that 8-year span, he'd have Iowa finish the year ranked as a top 6 team in the nation 4 times, as well as winning the national title in 1958 going 8-1-1, and the other being Hayden Fry, coaching from 1997 until 1998. Coach Fry would lead Iowa to 3 10-win seasons during his tenure, making the Rose Bowl 3 times, but unfortunately losing all 3. 2 great coaches for the Hawkeyes, but we all know who I'm picking for their best head coach of all time, and that would be Kirk Ferentz, coaching from 1999 until current day. Coach Ferentz has turned the Iowa Hawkeyes into a perennial 10-win-a-season program, winning 10-plus games or more in a season 8 times, winning a share of the Big Ten title twice in 2002 and 2004, as well as having the Hawkeyes 1 game away from making the college football playoffs in 2015. I will say Coach Ferentz does have competition with Coach Fry, as Fry has the edge in conference titles with 3, but I'm giving it to Kirk Ferentz because while the highs might not have been as high, which is arguable, his floor has definitely been a lot better. For Maryland, the next school up in the Big Ten, I already sort of know who their best head coach of all time is, since I did a video on Maryland not too long ago. Go check that out if you haven't. The Maryland Terps have had a couple of pretty good coaches in their program's history. Before I name the best in my opinion, I have to at least show some love to Coach Jim Tatum, who called the shots from 1947 until 1955. Maryland was elite during his tenure, having 3 10-win seasons, which was extremely difficult to do back then, as well as having his squad finish the season ranked inside of the top 3 times, finishing number 1 in 1953 winning the national title. He was a great head coach, but I really don't want to go this far back unless it's absolutely necessary. So I have Ralph Friedgen as the Terps' best head coach of all time, coaching from 2001 until 2010. He would win 9 games or more 5 times, 10 games or more 3 times, while coaching the Terps to an ACC title in 2001. Now there might be some diehard Maryland fans who'd put Jerry Claiborne as their best head coach in program history. He coached for 10 years through the 70s and part of the 80s, having some pretty successful teams, winning the ACC title 3 times in 1974, 75, and 76. But I'm giving it to Coach Friedgen because in my opinion, he won the ACC when it was a lot more competitive. Leaving the old line state, let's head over to the state shaped like a mitten for our next school up in the Big Ten. The Mitten has had 2 Big Ten schools that reside in it, so we're going to start with arguably the little brother of the 2, Michigan State. The Michigan State Spartans have had a pretty nice selection of head coaches over their 100 plus years of playing college football. Two honorable mentions are the GOAT Nick Saban, who coached from 1995 until 1999, Coach Saban would actually lead the Spartans to a 9-2 record on the season in 1999, being ranked as high as the 5th spot during the year. That's about all he did, though, over at Michigan State. I just wanted to mention it because I find it cool he coached Old Sparty. One Michigan State head coach that has a case for being the program's best head coach of all time is Duffy Daugherty, who called the shots from 1954 all the way until 1972. During his 19 seasons at Michigan State, he'd lead them to 2 conference titles in 65 and 66, as well as winning the national title twice, also in those same years. Coach Duffy is without a doubt a Michigan State legend, but for their best head coach in program history, I have to go with Mark D'Antonio. Coach D'Antonio would lead the program from 2007 all the way until 2019, making Michigan State football must-see TV in the 2010s. The 2010s were probably my favorite era of college football, and through the entire decade, Michigan State was always competing for Big Ten titles and BCS championship game berths. Under D'Antonio's leadership, Sparty would win 10 games or more in a season 6 times, 11 games or more in a season 5 times, and finally 12 games or more in a season twice. Not only was Sparty winning, but he would claim 3 conference titles with 2 BCS bowl games and make the college football playoffs once. He might not have won the Natty like Coach Duffy, but for how long he had the Spartan program dominating, that is why I have Coach D'Antonio as the best Michigan State head coach of all time. Staying in the mitten, we all know who the next team up in the Big Ten is, the Michigan Wolverines. Where do we even begin with the program whose coaching history is as rich as Michigan's? I guess it would be best to shout out the guys who came up just short in my opinion. But I do want you guys to realize, if you put any of these Michigan coaches with their accolades on any other team, they'd most likely be that team's best head coach in program history. First honorable mention goes to Jim Harbaugh, coaching from 2015 until 2023. Coach Harbaugh would win 10 games or more 6 times in a season, bringing home the Big Ten title 3 times in 2021, 2022, and 2023, also making it to the college football playoffs in those same years, with the biggest accomplishment to date being his national championship run in 2023. From one of the more recent head coaches in Michigan lore, we travel back in time to the next honorable mention, Coach Bo Schembechler, who called the shots in Ann Arbor from 1969 all the way until 1989. Having 11 seasons with 10 plus wins or more, finishing a season not ranked in the top 25 only twice, as well as winning the Big Ten Conference an insane 13 times. Legit, he did everything a legendary coach should and would do except for win the national championship, which is why I have Coach Lloyd Carr as the best Michigan head coach in program history. He would coach from 1995 until 2007, winning 10 games or more in a season 6 times, winning the Big Ten 5 times in 1997, 1998, 2000, 2003, and 2004, with the cherry on top being the natty run he led Michigan on in 1997, bringing the title back to Michigan for the first time since 1948. At the end of the day, there is a lot of competition when it comes to the best head coach in Michigan history. Let me know if your choice differs from mine down below in the comments, but for me, I'm choosing Lloyd Carr. The Minnesota Golden Gophers haven't had too many great head coaches in recent memory. One that really comes to mind is the boat rower himself, PJ Fleck. He's really brought this Golden Gophers football program back into relevance, taking over in 2017, still calling the shots as we speak. Coach Fleck has led Minnesota to 3 9-win or more seasons, with his 2019 campaign being one of the best in program history, winning 11 games, their most since all the way back in 1904. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times in this video already, I really didn't want to have to go back too far when choosing a program's best head coach, but for Minnesota, I don't think I have a choice. For their best head coach, I'm going to go with Bernie Bierman, coaching from 1932 until 1941, taking a little detour for a little, then coming back in 1945 and coaching until 1950. He would put together a bunch of really good seasons, going 8-0 in 1934, 1935, 1940, and 1941, winning the Natty in each of those seasons. 4 national titles is insane, but 5 is just bonkers. He would add 1 more for good measures in 1936, going 7-1. You can't always be perfect. Yeah, for Minnesota, the pickings were slim, so I went back, but I feel like this selection is well deserved because of all of his accolades. Next up in the Big Ten is the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and their best head coach in program history is so easy, I don't even have to do any research. So let's talk about the Cornhuskers' GOAT head coach, Scott Frost. Alright, I'm kidding, but before we talk about Tommy Ozzie Osborne, I do want to show love to the man who got the wheels on the crazy train moving, Coach Bob Devaney, leading the program from 1962 until 1972. As soon as he took over in Lincoln, he had the Cornhuskers playing elite football, as in his first 4 years, the least amount of wins Nebraska would finish the season with was 9. His best accomplishments would probably have to be the back-to-back titles he won in 1970 and 1971. He coached Nebraska for 10 years, and every single year they were a real threat. For most teams in this conference, I'm sure Coach Devaney would be their best head coach in program history, but for a blue blood like Nebraska, 2 titles just isn't enough. Which brings us to the Cornhuskers' best head coach of all time, Tom Osborne, coaching from 1973 until 1997. So I somewhat had an idea of how good of a head coach he was, but doing some research, I cannot lie, I was shocked by how good his squads were. In his 25 years as a head coach, the least amount of games he would win in a season was 9. He would never finish the season not ranked in the top 25, and would win 3 national titles with 3 conference titles, as well as my favorite stat, having 15 10-win or more seasons. That level of dominance for that long of a time span is something you don't see too often in college football. So it shouldn't be a shock to anyone that I have Tom Osborne as Nebraska's best head coach in program history. From a college football program that has had plenty of great head coaches, we head over to one of the worst programs in the Big Ten, the Northwestern Wildcats. For the Wildcats, there are really only 2 options when it comes to who their best head coach of all time is. Starting with Pat Fitzgerald, who coached from 2006 until 2022. In his 16 years of calling the shots, he would turn Northwestern into a respectable football program, winning 9 games or more in a season 5 times. I know when comparing that to other coaches in the Big Ten, that may not seem too impressive, but we all have to remember, Northwestern is one of the worst Power 4 football programs. With saying all of that, I don't have Coach Fitzgerald as their best coach in program history. This might be controversial, but I'm actually going to go with Gary Barnett, coaching from 1992 until 1998. Yes, he coached nowhere near as long as Pat Fitzgerald, but I'm giving it to him because he won 2 Big Ten titles, sharing one of them with Ohio State in 1996, but winning the title outright in 1995 for the first time since 1936. That 1995 season would see Northwestern going 10-2, making but losing the Rose Bowl and being ranked as high as the 3rd spot in the nation, their highest ranking since 1962. I know some Northwestern fans might put Pat Fitzgerald as their best head coach, but I'm going to go with Gary Barnett for this video. We're back with another blue blood, as next up in the Big Ten is the Ohio State Buckeyes. When it comes to a college football program like Ohio State, picking their best head coach of all time is not going to be an easy task. They've had legit 4, maybe 5 elite head coaches. Their current coach, Ryan Day, has already won a national championship and hasn't lost more than 2 games in a season since he took over. The only thing he hasn't done is have a winning record against Michigan. Urban Meyer, on the other hand, has had a winning record in the game, won 3 Big Ten titles, and like Ryan Day, never lost more than 2 games in a single season, with the cherry on top being winning a national title in 2014. Coach Meyer and Day are the modern day GOATs for the Buckeyes. Not all time though. I feel like for that conversation it comes down to 2 Ohio State head coaches, Woody Hayes and Jim Tressel. Coach Tressel would run the show from 2001 until 2010, winning 10 games or more in a season 8 times, finishing the season ranked inside of the top 5 7 times, winning the Big Ten 6 times, as well as winning the national championship in 2002, going 14-0. An incredible career at Ohio State for an incredible coach, but I have to go with Woody Hayes for Ohio State's best head coach in program history. Coaching from 1951 until 1978, Coach Hayes would win 13 Big Ten titles, 5 national titles in 1954, 1957, 1961, 1968, and 1970. Pretty much having his Buckeye teams competing for titles every single season he coached them. Let me know down below in the comments, Ohio State fans, if you feel different. But I just couldn't ignore all of his accolades, which is why I have Woody Hayes as Ohio State's best head coach in program history. Leaving the O, let's head over to the O for the next squad up in the mighty Big Ten, the Oregon Ducks. When it comes to Oregon football, it's a lot harder to choose their best head coach of all time compared to most of the other schools in the Big Ten. Because frankly, as a program, Oregon only really started making waves in the college football world after the year 2000. Before the year 2000, Oregon was good at football, but nowhere near as close to the teams of today who are competing for playoff spots each and every season. Alright, so the first coach I want to show some love to is Chip Kelly. Now, while he's had a ton of success coaching Oregon, I can't put him as the best because he only coached there for 4 years from 2009 until 2012. He was very successful in his short stint in Eugene, going 10-3 in 2009, 12-1 in 2010, losing in the BCS championship game, 12-2 in 2011, winning the Rose Bowl, and finally in 2012 going 12-1, winning the Fiesta Bowl. An incredible 4 years, but man, if he stayed just a little bit longer, I'd easily have Chip Kelly as the best head coach in Ducks history. But I can't in good faith put a coach who's only coached 4 years when there's better options who stayed a tad bit longer. So I'm going to go with head coach Mike Bellotti as the Oregon Ducks' best head coach of all time, calling the shots from 1995 until 2008. In Coach Bellotti's 14 seasons at Oregon, he would win my favorite stat, 10 games or more in a season 4 times, which before he took over, the Ducks had never won 10 games in a single season before. He would also win the Pac-10 Conference twice in 2000 and 2001, with this standout season coming in 2001, when he would coach the Ducks to an 11-1 record, winning the Rose Bowl and finishing the year ranked at the number 2 spot in the final AP polls. He definitely played a huge role in elevating this Oregon Ducks football program, so that's why I have him as their best head coach in program history. Next up is the team who played Oregon in the 2024 Big Ten Championship game, the Penn State Nittany Lions. For Penn State, there really is only one option for their best head coach in program history, and I think we all know who that is. But before we talk about Joe Pa, let's give James Franklin his flowers. Coach Franklin would call the shots at Penn State from 2014 all the way until 2025, where he would get fired halfway through the season. I know he had a hard time winning big games, but in his 11 years, James Franklin would win 10 games or more in a season 6 times, bringing home 3 New Year's 6 bowl game wins, winning the Fiesta Bowl in 2017, the Cotton Bowl in 2019, and finally the Rose Bowl in 2022, as well as winning the Big Ten title back in 2016. He might not have been able to bring this program back to competing for national titles, but you can't ignore how successful he was. Alright, so for the best head coach in program history, it's obviously Joe Paterno, coaching from 1966 all the way until 2011. In his 46 years of running this program, he would turn the Nittany Lions into a premier college football program, winning 3 Big Ten titles in 1994, 2005, and 2008, with the cherry on top being his 2 national titles in 1982 and 1986. Coach Joe Paterno just isn't a Penn State legend, he's also a college football legend, and when it comes to Penn State football, his name is synonymous with the university. I know the off-the-field stuff was unacceptable, and I do not condone it at all, but this video is strictly about on-the-field accolades. Purdue. I really loved the Boilermakers as a kid growing up. If you don't believe me, ask my grandma. I don't know what it was about trains growing up, but they were everything to me. And I really used to think Purdue had one of the coolest logos in the Big Ten, but that has nothing to do with their coaching history, so let's actually talk about that. In Purdue's 134 years of playing high-level college football, there haven't been too many big coaching names coming through West Lafayette, so the pickings were very slim for this program's best head coach of all time. To me, there are only two options, so let's start with the guy who came up just short, Joe Tiller, coaching from 1997 until 2008. Coach Tiller was great in his 10+ years coaching at Purdue, winning 9 games in a season 3 times. I usually only do 10 wins in a season, but Purdue's only done that once in program history, so winning 9 games in a season 3 times is the stuff of legend when it comes to Purdue football. I think Coach Tiller's best year was 2000 when his squad would win a share of the Big Ten title, making the Rose Bowl but losing it. Also, something that I was very shocked to learn while researching his time at Purdue was his teams would finish the season ranked inside of the top 25 5 times. The Boilermakers have only finished inside of the top 25 once since the year 2003. Coach Joe Tiller was a great Purdue football coach, but for their best, I'm going to go with Jack Mollenkoff, coaching from 1956 all the way until 1969. One of the main reasons I have him as Purdue's best head coach is because he won a lot. His stretch from 1965 until 1969 can go bar for bar with a lot of the coaches in the Big Ten, going 7-2-1 in 1965, being ranked at the 2nd spot in the country at one point during the season, 9-2 in 1966, winning Purdue's only Rose Bowl to date, as well as finishing the year ranked 7th, Purdue's highest final poll ranking ever. And from 1967 to 1969, he go 8-2 in each of those seasons, winning the Big Ten title in 1967. Because of all the winning he did, that is why I have Jack Mollenkoff as the best head coach in Purdue history, even though I really don't want to have to go back to the 60s for a team's best head coach. Staying with the theme of Big Ten bottom feeders, we have not only one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, but also one of the worst college football programs, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. When it comes to good old Rutgers, there are not too many big-time head coaches in this program's long history of playing college football. I think we should have an idea of who their best head coach of all time is, but someone who I think should get a little more credit is Frank Burns, coaching the Scarlet Knights from 1973 until 1983. He's not their best head coach, but he sure did a lot of winning, and something I noticed was his 1976 season, where his team would go 11-0, finishing the season ranked 17th in the country. You might notice 11-0 and only ranked 17th. Well, they were independent back then and they played a pretty weak schedule, but before 1976, Rutgers had only finished ranked inside of the top 25 once in 1958, and it wouldn't be all the way until 2006 when that would happen again. So what Coach Burns did in 1976 was definitely special for their standards. Pretty good coach, but for the best in program history, I'm going with Greg Schiano, coaching from 2001 until 2011, then coming back in 2020 and still coaching there as we speak. He's best known for his 2006 season where he would lead the Scarlet Knights to an 11-2 record, being ranked as high as the 7th spot at one point during the season and finishing the year ranked 12th, their highest final AP poll ranking in program history. But it wasn't just 2006 where he had Rutgers doing something they usually don't do, which is win, as he would put together a total of 5 8-win or more seasons in his 17 years coaching the Scarlet Knights. Let me know, Rutgers fans, if you have something different, but I think this one's pretty solid. I know this is the Big Ten, but we have to travel all the way back to California for the next school up in this video, the UCLA Bruins. This entry is going to be a lot shorter than the rest because frankly, besides Red Sanders, who was the head coach of UCLA way back in the late 40s to late 50s, there are not too many options for the Bruins' best head coach of all time. Coach Sanders is not my choice for the Bruins' best coach, but I do need to give him his flowers because he won UCLA's only national title in program history way back in 1954, going 9-0 as well as finishing the season ranked inside of the top 6 4 times in a row. Extremely solid, but he didn't coach the Bruins for that long, which is why I'm choosing Terry Donahue as their best head coach of all time. He was the head honcho from 1976 until 1995. In his 20 seasons in LA, he would win 5 conference titles, win the Rose Bowl 3 times, as well as putting together 8 seasons with 9 wins or more. He never won it all, but came close a couple of times. Coach Donahue is UCLA's all-time win leader and was a large part of the success UCLA had throughout the 80s. Staying in California and staying in LA, next up is the USC Trojans. When it comes to a program like USC, who has won 39 conference titles and won 9 national titles, it shouldn't be a shock that there isn't a shortage of great head coaches to choose from. I could go with John Robinson, coaching from 1976 until 1982. In his short stay, he would win 11 games or more in a season 3 times, win the Rose Bowl also 3 times, and bring home the national title in 1978, going 12-1. For a good part of the Big Ten, a coaching career like that would put you at GOAT status, but not a blue blood like USC. Coming in second, mostly because he left early due to some sketchy stuff, I got Pete Carroll. He was an elite head coach, walking the stars from 2001 until 2009. In his 9 years, he would win 11 games or more in a season 7 times, finish the season ranked inside of the top 4 7 times, win the conference title 7 times, win the Orange Bowl twice and the Rose Bowl 4 times, with the cherry on top being his back-to-back national titles in 2003 and 2004. This man in 9 years did more than most coaches do in an entire career. But even with saying all of that, he's not the Trojans' best head coach of all time. For that, I'm going to go with John McKay. Coach McKay was the Trojans' head coach from 1960 until 1975, and all he did was win. Putting together 5 seasons with 10 wins or more, which mind you, back in the 60s and 70s, winning 10 games wasn't anywhere near as easy as it is today. He'd also win 9 conference titles, but to be real, the main reason I have him as USC's best head coach is the 4 national titles he won in 1962, 1967, 1972, and finally 1974. I'm sure I might get a little pushback for not having Pete Carroll as the Trojans' best head coach in program history, but I'm standing with John McKay for this one. He accomplished too much and stayed a lot longer. This is the last former Pac-12 team of the video, I promise. Alright, the Washington Huskies kind of have some weird stuff going on. So they have some pretty good coaches scattered throughout their history, but none of them really stayed for too long. So before we jump right into their GOAT head coach, I personally want to give some flowers to one of my favorite coaches, Chris Peterson, coaching the Huskies from 2014 until 2019. He started a little slow, but after about 2 seasons, he would really turn this Washington program back up for the first time in about 16 years, bringing them to the college football playoffs in 2006, as well as winning 2 conference titles in 2016 and 2018. He wasn't there for too long, but I wanted to show him some love. As for their best head coach in Washington Husky history, I'm going to go with Don James, coaching from 1975 until 1992. In his 18 years of running the program, he'd win 10 games or more in a season 5 times, winning the conference title 6 times, finishing the season ranked inside of the top 11 8 times, with his best accomplishment being winning Washington's only national title in 1991, going 12-0. I'm not going to lie, he got robbed of winning another national title back in 1984. His team would go 11-1, beating the number 2 ranked Oklahoma Sooners in the Orange Bowl, but would finish second in the final polls behind BYU, who finished 13-0. Regardless, I have him easily as the Huskies' best head coach in program history. The last team left to cover in the Big Ten and in this video is the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin has always been one of the big boys in the Big Ten Conference, well, at least since I've been alive, which means there's a handful of great coaches to pick from. Off the rip, huge shout out to Brett Bielema, who coached from 2006 until 2012, winning my favorite stat, 10 games or more in a season 4 times, as well as winning the Big Ten Conference 3 times in 2010, 2011, and 2012. He had the Badgers close to winning a couple of Rose Bowls, but would always fall just short, which is why for the Badgers' best head coach in program history, I'm going with Barry Alvarez, calling the shots from 1990 until 2005. In his 16 years, Coach Alvarez would win 10 games or more in a season 4 times, win the Big Ten Conference 3 times, with his biggest accomplishment in my opinion being his 3 Rose Bowl wins in 1993, 1998, and 1999. His stats kind of seem similar to Brett Bielema, but because he coached at Wisconsin a lot longer and was actually able to win a couple of Rose Bowls, that's my reason for picking him as the best coach in Badger history.